I will not fly with this incompetent man. Minutes before takeoff, Captain Marissa Hartman shot up from her seat, her finger aimed directly at Evan Hayes, the new first officer. She grabbed her phone, calling flight operations to demand a replacement immediately. Evan didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply reached for his own phone. But Marissa had no idea that the man she was screaming at wasn't just a pilot. He held a secret that was about to turn her entire world upside down. The morning air at Teterboro was cold and sharp. Evan Hayes stood outside the crew briefing room with his flight bag slung over one shoulder, watching the crew prep the Gulf Stream on the tarmac. The jet shined under the early sun, white and spotless. He had flown dozens of these before. They were clean machines, built for people who expected perfection. He checked his watch. 6:43. The flight was scheduled to depart at 8. Plenty of time for the walk-around, the briefing, and the pre-flight checks. He had learned long ago not to rush these things, because rushing was how mistakes happened. And mistakes in the air didn't give second chances. Inside the briefing room, Captain Marissa Hartman was already seated at the head of the table. She had her tablet open, scrolling through weather charts, and didn't even look up when Evan entered. Marissa was in her late 30s, sharp-featured, with 4 stripes on each shoulder. She had earned those stripes over years of flying, and she made sure everyone knew it. Her reputation was solid, she had logged thousands of hours and never damaged a plane. But there was something else about her, a sharpness that had nothing to do with professionalism. Evan had heard the stories. Other pilots described her as difficult, not because she demanded excellence, but because she treated people like they were beneath her, especially men. She finally looked up from her tablet, her eyes moving over him slowly. "You must be the new first officer," she said without a smile. Evan nodded. "Evan Hayes." She didn't offer her hand. "I assume you reviewed the flight plan." Evan replied that he had. She continued, "We are flying a tech executive to San Jose. Wheels up at 8. Flight time is 5 hours and 20 minutes. Weather is clear, maybe some light bumps over the Rockies, but nothing serious. Any questions?" "No," Evan said. Marissa leaned back, crossing her arms. "I've been flying for 16 years. I've been a captain for 7. I do not tolerate mistakes in my cockpit. I do not tolerate sloppy work. And I do not tolerate men who think they know better than I do just because they have been flying for a few years. Are we clear?" Evan met her eyes calmly. "We are clear." They walked out to the tarmac together. Marissa headed straight for the cockpit, but Evan stopped at the nose of the aircraft to begin his walk-around. He moved slowly, checking the left wing, the engine, and then he crouched low to look at the landing gear. That's when he saw it. A thin trail of reddish fluid running down the side of the metal strut. It wasn't much, just enough to catch the light. He traced the trail up and found a small leak at the fitting. It looked old, but the fresh streak meant it was still leaking. Evan took 3 photos with his phone and logged it in the maintenance app. This wasn't something they could fly with safely. Hydraulic systems controlled the landing gear, the brakes, and the flight controls. A leak meant a possible system failure, and with a VIP passenger on board, that was a risk they couldn't take. He climbed into the cockpit where Marissa was already working. "Everything look good?" she asked, barely glancing at him. "No," Evan said. "We have a hydraulic leak on the left main gear. I logged it. Maintenance needs to take a look before we go." Marissa stopped. She turned and stared at him. "Show me." They walked back out, and Evan pointed to the strut. Marissa looked at it, then stood up and shook her head. "That is nothing," she said. "Hydraulic systems weep all the time. It is normal. I have been flying jets since you were in flight school. I know what is dangerous and what is not." Evan kept his voice level. "The regulations say we log it and have maintenance inspect it. That is the procedure." Marissa's jaw tightened. "I don't need you to tell me the regulations. I wrote half the training manuals for this company. That leak is not a safety issue. Our passenger is a billionaire who hates delays. If we cancel this flight over something this minor, it reflects badly on both of us. Evan replied. I already logged it. Maintenance has been notified. Marissa's irritation turned cold. You went over my head without asking me first? You undermined my authority. She turned and stormed back to the cockpit. Evan followed. Inside, she made a call. This is Captain Hartman. I need to speak with Director Cole immediately. When she got through, Evan watched her face tighten. We have a situation. My first officer logged a non-issue, and now we are delayed. I am requesting a replacement. I will not fly with someone who does not understand the difference between a real problem and a nuisance. She listened for a moment, then snapped. No, I am not overreacting. This is about competence. This is about a man who cannot handle taking direction from a woman. If you do not replace him, I am walking off this flight. He is trying to assert dominance because he cannot handle the fact that I am the captain. After a long silence, she looked confused, then angry. What do you mean I should discuss it with him directly? I am the captain. She hung up the phone and turned to Evan, her face flushed red. You need to call your director and explain yourself. Evan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He didn't dial. He simply unlocked the screen and held it up so Marissa could see his contact list. At the top, under favorites, was Director Cole. Below that was the name CO Sterling. Marissa looked from the screen to Evan's face, looking uncertain for the first time. Who are you? She asked. Evan put the phone away. I am the co-founder of this company. I own 49% of the fleet you are sitting in right now. I've been flying since I was 19. I flew combat missions overseas before I ever touched a civilian aircraft. I built this business from the ground up, and I still fly because I love it. Marissa's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Evan continued, his voice calm but firm. You can call me incompetent. You can call me inexperienced. But you will not ignore a safety finding on one of my aircraft. You will not put a passenger at risk because you are too proud to wait for a mechanic. And you will not accuse me of undermining you when I am doing exactly what every pilot is trained to do. The cockpit was silent. Marissa stood up slowly, her face pale. She looked at Evan, then at her phone. I was testing you, she said quietly, trying to force a smile. I wanted to see if you would follow procedures under pressure. You passed. Good work. She turned and quickly climbed out of the cockpit without looking back. 10 minutes later, maintenance arrived. The technician confirmed the leak was fresh and needed repair. You were right to call it in, he told Evan. This fitting is loose. Could have blown out on landing. Evan nodded and updated Director Cole. But just then, the cabin door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped in. It was Daniel Cross, the billionaire passenger. You must be the pilot, Cross said, shaking Evan's hand. I looked you up. You're the co-founder, right? Evan nodded. So, what happened? Cross asked. Evan explained the leak. And the captain? Cross asked. I saw her leave looking upset. Evan replied neutrally. She disagreed with the decision to delay the flight. She felt the issue was minor. Cross shook his head. I've been flying private for 12 years. The good pilots don't take chances. They make the boring, careful decisions that keep everyone alive. You made the right call. When the repair was done, Evan called Director Cole. We are ready. Do we have a replacement captain? Cole sighed. Marissa is insisting she fly the trip. She says she overreacted and wants another chance. She is threatening to file a formal complaint if we pull her off, claiming we are retaliating against her. We need to handle this carefully. Fly the trip, document everything. 5 minutes later, Marissa returned. She didn't look at Evan. She was stiff and mechanical. The flight to San Jose was smooth, but the cockpit was cold and silent. When they landed, Marissa left immediately without a word. Evan finished the paperwork, then called his daughter to say goodnight. But his peace didn't last long. A message arrived from Cole. Marissa filed a complaint. She claims you created a hostile work environment. HR wants a statement. Evan wasn't surprised. She was trying to turn this into something bigger. The next morning, Evan met with HR and showed them the photos of the leak, the logs, and the messages. Marissa, meanwhile, had been placed on leave and responded by hiring a lawyer, suing the company for gender discrimination and demanding a public apology. The legal team pulled her records. What they found was shocking. Marissa had a history of abusing male first officers. 6 incidents in 3 years. Pilots had requested never to fly with her again. But the real smoking gun was the cockpit voice recorder. Every word from that morning had been recorded. The lawyers listened to Marissa's sharp insults, her refusal to look at the leak, and her false accusations against Evan. They heard Evan's calm, professional responses. The company decided to fight the lawsuit. But before they could, someone leaked the details to the internet. At first, social media rallied behind Marissa, seeing her as a victim of a male-dominated industry. But then, the cockpit audio was leaked. The public heard her arrogance. They heard her ignoring a safety issue. The support for her evaporated overnight. The FAA opened an investigation and found she had violated federal regulations by signing off on a flight with a known mechanical issue. Her license was suspended, and eventually, permanently revoked. Her career was over. Evan knew this wasn't just about one bad pilot. It was about a culture that let it happen. He called a meeting with the executives. "We failed," Evan said. "We knew she was abusive, but we did nothing because we were afraid of how it would look. We put passengers at risk." He proposed a solution, a $50 million scholarship program to train a new generation of pilots who were humble, disciplined, and put safety first. 1 year later, Evan stood on that same tarmac. The program was a massive success, giving opportunities to veterans, single mothers, and people who couldn't afford flight school. One of those graduates was Sarah Brennan. She was nervous about her first commercial flight with Evan. During her walk-around, she stopped at the landing gear. She crouched down, checked it carefully, and came back to the cockpit. "There is a small hydraulic stain," Sarah said. "It looks old, but I want to log it and have maintenance take a look." Evan felt a wave of relief. "Good catch," he said. "Log it." It turned out to be nothing, just residue, but that didn't matter. She had done the job right. As they flew toward Miami, Evan watched her handle the controls with steady hands. After they landed, Sarah thanked him for the opportunity. "Why did you start the scholarship?" she asked. Evan thought about Marissa, and the ego that had almost caused the disaster. "Because I got tired of hiring people who thought they had nothing left to learn," he said. "I got tired of watching pilots use their experience as a shield instead of a responsibility." That night, back at home, Evan sat on his porch under the stars. He didn't care where Marissa was anymore. He thought about the 50 new pilots who would graduate soon. He thought about the future. Being a good pilot wasn't about power or pride. It was about showing up, following the rules, and knowing that getting everyone home safe was the only thing that mattered. Evan finished his coffee and went inside. Tomorrow, he would fly again. And that was enough.